Migrants have been dropped off on Kamala Harris's DC doorstep and dispute her secure border claim. We come in free? No problem. So dozens of migrants were dropped on the DC doorstep of clueless border czar and Vice President Kamala Harris on Thursday and quickly schooled her on just how open her supposed secure border is. Another way you could really look at it is basically someone saying, yeah, your condom is A-OK, and then they give you no condom. That's totally secure. So while Harris famously claimed in a bizarre TV interview just days ago that we have a secure border, as the flood of illegal immigrants into the country continues to hit record highs, the fresh arrivals outside her gates at the Naval Observatory in Washington heartily disputed the assertion. It is open, not closed. The border is open, insisted a man who was among the roughly 100 migrants dropped off by two buses from Texas to Fox News. Everybody believes that the border is open, he said. It is open because we enter. We come in free, no problem. We came illegally, not legally. So Harris refused to comment when leaving an event later at the White House, Fox said about this whole basically fiasco. And the migrants outside her home were mostly Venezuelan nationals and had been picked up in Eagle Pass, Texas, and then shipped off to D.C. by Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Thales said. And video from the scene showed a large group of men, women, and children carrying small pillows and backpacks, some with blankets draped over their shoulders to keep off the morning chill as they milled about and chatted among themselves outside the guarded gates of Harris's residence. A representative from a charity called Sanctuary DMV later arrived at the scene and announced to the migrants they would be going to a local church where they will be offered assistance. And like one of the main reasons why we're even covering this story, because we typically don't cover anything political, we mainly talk about finances. And the reason why we're even covering this story is because having so many illegals coming into the country is going to cause a burden on the workforce, on businesses, on the cost of everything. If you have a increase in population, like everywhere, you're also going to have an increase in homelessness. You're going to have an increase in just cost of living because more people there need to spend more money on stuff in that location. Like it's basically like a trickle effect, right? Like it won't be bad immediately, but as time goes on, things will gradually get worse, right? And a personal example is that I used to drive by a gas station and basically saw pretty much nothing out of the norm, right? But then I started to see one person just standing there, right? Then I saw three people just standing there. Next time I went by, eight people were standing there. And then, out of nowhere, in a sense, there was basically like 40 to 50 people at this gas station. All illegals, all of them were wearing backpacks, all of them were basically, you could tell, pretty much living at that gas station. And so you're like, wow, this is pretty crazy. Not only that, I start to see at the same time an actual increase in the amount of homeless people in the area, right? At like basically almost every decent intersection, there's a homeless person, right? And then they also get a little bit more brazen about, trying to ask for money or something or try to do something, right? So, it may not seem horrible right away. You may not be feeling the impacts of this right away, but there will be an effect on basically your wallet because of all the illegal immigration that's coming and that is going on, that has been going on, right? So basically, what I really suggest is that for anyone that is a little bit worried about the lingering effects of this type of situation, make sure that you are in a secure job or you have a secure income stream. Make certain that you are not highly leveraged, meaning try to pay off your debt as fast as possible. And if you want to learn how to get out of debt and learn how I got out of debt and grew my net worth, go down below. Make sure you have a decent emergency fund so that you don't end up becoming one of the people that end up becoming homeless. And make sure you start putting money towards investments because due to the inflation, due to interest rates, due to so many different aspects, due to illegal immigration, your money sitting in your bank account or sitting in your wallet is basically continuously losing its purchasing power, right? You could even see it right now. Like, if you remember what you were spending on the exact same items that you bought at the grocery store a year ago, you'll realize, wow, my money practically only goes 50% as what it did before, right? Personal example, and I use this pretty often, dog food. There is a specific dog food that I buy every week, right? When I first started to buy it, only cost like $10.68, right? $10.68. Now, it is nearly almost 20 bucks. Exact same item. No increase in the amount of ingredients. So the exact amount of dog food, the exact same amount, is worth almost double now. It almost costs double. Like, that is beyond crazy. That means potentially if you were spending like $100 per week or $100 when you were buying like groceries a year ago, now you're potentially spending like $200, right? But if your income hasn't changed at all, you're basically getting screwed nonstop. So it's just something to really consider. Like, some people have different, political views, right? Some people might be completely okay with illegal immigration, but there's always a cost to everything. For every decision, for every choice, for every political move, there is always a cost. And people just don't really think about what is the actual effect of these types of things. So Biden had appointed Harris to oversee the country's out-of-control immigration situation in March 2021, with the vice president not visiting the U.S.-Mexico border till 3 months later. Even then, she toured an area far from the crisis epicenter. Then, just days ago, Harris declared during an interview on NBC's Meet the Press that the U.S. southern border is secure. And according to the latest Customs and Border Protection data, migrant arrest numbers have almost doubled under the Biden administration and already exceed last year's record, right? And by the way, that's only the people that they actually caught, that they're actually arresting. There's so many people that they're not even arresting. NBC host Chuck Todd challenged Harris's statement, noting that the number of border crossings was nearing 2 million for the first time ever, and asked her if she was confident the border is secure. Harris offered a muddled response saying, "We have a secure border, and that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration. But there are still a lot of problems that we are trying to fix given the deterioration that happened over the last 4 years." Which doesn't make any sense because it's like the biggest problem that I have with politicians is that they never take responsibility for anything that they do, right? And because they never do take responsibility, they can never actually fix the issue because they can't even admit that that the issue existed and it came from them. So Abbott, a Republican, has been sending busloads of migrants from Texas to Democrat controlled cities like New York, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. throughout the summer to teach the cities a lesson about the real implications of the border crisis, which has overwhelmed the Lone Star State. And by the way, I think this was probably one of the smartest things that a politician has ever done in response to another politician's actions, right? And the reason for this is because this directly shows the people who voted for these policies the effects of those policies, right? Because when you are separated from something, you're not really going to understand the implications of the choices, right? So, for example, let's say that you voted for war in the Middle East, right? Or that you voted for funding, weapons to Ukraine and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, because it's not near you, you don't actually know the effects of those actions. You don't actually feel the actual cost of voting for those decisions, right? But if you had to basically deal with the potential consequences of your choices, because instead of, a whole different area, like overseas, it's now basically in your neighborhood, and you basically chose to fund one person versus the other, and it's two people within your neighborhood, and you got to deal with the collateral damage per se, then you start rethinking about exactly would you have gotten involved or not, right? It's just like people need to understand that perspective, right? Try to decide on things or like vote for things or get involved with things as if you had to deal with it yourself, right? Because then that basically changes a lot of people's viewpoint on fixing any of these issues, on any issue. If you had to be directly involved in it somehow or for some reason, you would start to rethink, do I really want to vote for that? Is that really something that I really want to spend my time doing? Do I really want to have to deal with seeing, bodies just like lined up around my home? Do I really want to see needles every time I just walk outside? Do I really want to see basically like literal living zombies in like intersections because they're like super high on fentanyl, right? It's just something to really think about. Like if you had to directly deal or even indirectly deal, but in close proximity to your choices, like the results of your choices, things would be so much different. So I think this is probably the best thing, best countermeasure that any politician has literally ever done. In Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, a Democrat, declared a public emergency last week over the influx of migrants coming from Texas and Arizona who require accommodations, medical care, and other critical services. And Bowser's repeated request to have the National Guard deployed to help with the migrant crisis have been turned down by the Department of Defense. And we're going to be checking out some of the comments on this post because they're probably going to get a little spicy. Let's see. Break out the snacks and beer cackles, give them a nice warm welcome. Another great move. First Martha's Vineyard, now Harris's doorstep. Next. Can't make this up. You all know this saying from the mouths of babes. Well, this is from the mouths of illegals. It is open, not closed. The border is open, insisted a man who was among the roughly 100 migrants dropped off by two buses from Texas to Fox News. Everybody believes that the border is open, he said. It is open because we enter, we come in free, no problem. We came illegally, not legally. Keep 'em coming, Texas. Make those blue state sanctuary cities put up or shut up, or better yet, close the border. Anyone with any sense knows you can't fix a hole in the roof till it stops raining. In the meantime, keep 'em coming, do not stop. Which reminds me, like, a lot of people are also for forgive student debt, right? But really, that never will actually happen because they are still giving out student debt, right? Imagine basically you were bleeding out of your wrist, right? And you're trying to plug, you know, the wound, right? Well, okay, you could plug the wound, but if you are still cutting your wrists, guess what? You're still going to be bleeding, right? So people need to just understand, like, anytime these politicians do these sort of things, you got to be like, are you just like trying to like slap me in the face? Like, are you just like, I don't know. It's just so annoying. I think next should be outside gated communities in Scottsdale, Beverly Hills, Menlo Park, one hacker way, as well as all the mainstream media Masters of the Universe headquarters. They're concentrating on the East, but they need to spread the opportunity for these woke folk to step up. They are implying nothing to see at the borders, so let them see on their home turf what the policies they have implemented have brought to the southern border region. And again, if people had to deal with the things that they voted for, a lot of them would probably be changing their tune. That being said, you have a place like California where there's still a lot of people still living in the same place, voting the exact same way, even though they are literally getting punished by their choices. Let's see. Board, the next stop, the White House. Now, this would actually be an interesting one if they actually ended up busing a lot of illegal immigrants to the actual White House. That would be very interesting. But yeah, feel free to give your thoughts if you stumble upon this, right? My main thing is that no matter who you are, no matter what your situation is right now, you need to secure your finances because who knows what on earth is going to happen within this country, financially speaking, right? I mean, the stock market might crash, real estate market might crash, your money is getting worthless more and more. Like, it's getting pretty crazy financially speaking. But if you're debt free and you're not spending more than you're making, regardless of what's going on, you could pretty much weather the storm, right? So I really hope people who end up stumbling upon this take it seriously, take your finances seriously, because you don't want to be homeless. You don't want to have to be in a situation where you are potentially having to do things like illegally to simply survive or have a better life or whatever, right? You never want to be in a situation kind of like this where potentially you are fleeing the United States to a different country for an opportunity. Like, ugh, it's gonna be interesting. But yeah, feel free to give your thoughts. I just think this is crazy, 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 because it's gonna get way worse, way, way worse.